Hello, welcome to this edition of Yin Yoga. It is the third Thursday in May as we're recording live. So many of you are here live. Some of you are watching the recording. Some of you are watching it again because you like it. All of it is awesome. This month's theme, I like to do a seasonal theme for the monthly Yin Yoga, is lymph and immune system health. And so why did I pick that? Well, because the springtime in general, although we're kind of ending that phase as we get a little warmer, but springtime in general is a time when your body is naturally going through a deeper detoxification process after winter. It's kind of like, hey, let's get the sap flowing and the juices moving and everything that we don't need out of our system after maybe accumulating on purpose in the wintertime to stay warm. And so your lymph system, which basically is what, if you would call a system, your immune system, it's your lymph system. There are other pieces to the puzzle, of course, but your lymph system is working extra hard this time of year. And it's also, because of that, a little bit challenged by what can feel like a little bit of the heaviness of spring. You know, some people are like, yay, spring. And it's more wet, it's more earthy, it's a little bit heavier, we would say in Ayurveda, because of the extra earth and water element that's prevalent. Now you might be like, oh, but the last few days have been really dry, cold, and windy. Well, every season has a preview of the next, and every season has a reminder of the last. So wherever you are, my hope is that this is useful and helpful. And really the idea behind the Yin Yoga practice in general is to let's get stuck energy to move a little bit so that you feel more at ease, that the energy is flowing better. You might have a little bit more color in your cheeks, a little bit more, you know, I'm not saying like energy in the sort of like coffee kind of energized way, but just like, hey, wow, I just feel more myself. That's my hope. Usually when we talk about moving lymph doesn't have its own pump like the heart does for the circulatory system in the blood, right? So a lot of what the research is out there and a lot of what you hear is like, you got to pump, you know, and help move. And so that can be a very active practice. And so today it was my challenge to create something that very gently can help stimulate the lymph system and work some of the immune points in the body so that things keep going. Because I feel like sometimes you don't want to jump up and down, right? But you still want to keep things moving and flowing. And so that's my intention for tonight, is to let's get things moving and flowing. I will talk less now and move to my mat. Thanks for listening. I hope that was all interesting and helpful. So for tonight, as far as props go, I highly recommend a blanket, maybe two, and a strap or a scarf, something that you can grab onto. If you don't have any of those things, don't worry about it. You can do this practice without any of that. So as always, I like to start with a couple of, let's do a little centering and then a couple of acupuncture points that you can massage. And then we'll move into some of the postures. So whatever position you're in, whatever room you're in, look around, turn and twist to look behind you. This is all part of like greeting yourself in your space. Even if it's a familiar space, turning and twisting like this helps tell your body and your nervous system that you're safe and that you can orient your energy to this activity or whatever activity it is. And there might be something like, you know, out one of your windows that you're attracted to. Feel free to continue looking around. But also check in inside of you, like what's going on the inner landscape. And if hands on the body helps you do that, feel free to touch, connect. Notice what I like to call the signs of life your breath moving, heart beating, blood flowing, evidenced by temperature. Any areas that if you feel warm, and it's always okay if you tune in and you find a mix of things. You know, maybe you're like, oh, I'm happy to be here, or oh, I really need this, or oh, I don't really want to do this, right? Sometimes the rebel shows up. Or maybe something's on your mind, a conversation that you had earlier, or one that's unfinished. Allow whatever is emerging for you to be part of your experience. It's not about pushing anything aside. It's about welcoming yourself as you are, without judgment. And if you'd like, you can linger here or anywhere as long as you'd like. You don't have to wait for me to guide you in or out of anything. If you're ready to explore a couple acupuncture points, I have one really that I love for the immune system. And it's in the crook of your elbow. So if you have a shirt on, it can be helpful to kind of scoot the sleeve up and then bend your elbow so that you can see the crease that naturally happens in your skin as a result of bending your elbow. And the point is somewhere right towards the end of the crease. So bend your elbow, find the crease, and then relax your arm and start poking around with one of your fingers or your thumb. And sometimes people find that there's a little bit of tenderness on, a placement of an acupuncture point, or there's a natural divot in the body or the skin there. So I'm finding a little tenderness. Anybody else finding that? So this is a large intestine point, which if you're an acupuncture nerd like me is fun to know. But it's also like, wow, my large intestine is connected to my immune system. Everything is connected. Your large intestine meridian or energy line runs along the outside of your arm. And so there'll be a couple of postures where we'll be sort of activating or targeting that line. And this point is really helpful in terms of, well, two main reasons why I'm sharing it with you. As we start to get into the warmer parts of the year, the transition into summer, this is a great point to release heat. So if you're feeling like you're overheating or you're just generally like warmer than comfortable, you could spend a little time massaging this point. By the way, it exists on both arms, so you can play with one side and then find it on the other side. And sometimes one side's more tender than the other, sometimes not. So that would be one way that you could use this point, is kind of to release heat. And because it has that ability, it's actually connected also to its helpfulness with the immune system. Because sometimes when you're working with something, and I'm thinking allergies right now, just because that's what's happening, right? It's like your system is like, hey, this is a foreign thing that has somehow invaded past the gates of my normal immunity or protectiveness. And sometimes the best way to help release that is to like open the gates. Literally open the doors and windows. And so this point helps kind of take off a little bit of that armor, that protective armor, not in an unhelpful way, but in a way of like, literally, let's open the doors and windows and let the bug out, right? Let out the heat. It's great if you have a fever, because of that releasing of the heat, because it kind of releases the exterior, is the words that they'll often use in the acupuncture world. So that's my point for today. It's called large intestine 11. And I believe it's also known as crooked pond. I can't remember if it's crooked something else or crooked pond. I want to say it's crooked pond. So you remember because it's the crook of your elbow. All right, I hope that was interesting. You ready to move a little bit, slowly and sweetly? All right, our first posture is the only posture that requires you to stand up. And you don't even have to stand up fully, because what we'll do is dangle. A terrible word for a beautiful pose, essentially a standing forward fold. This is the one where I'm going to invite you to bring the a strap into things. Thanks, Nancy. Yes. So if you're willing to head to your feet, in general, the idea is to fold with the intention of opening up some space under the armpit. There's a lot of concentrated lymph nodes under the armpit. And so my idea behind this is to create a little space there. So you could, if you'd rather, rest your hands down, maybe on a block or something. But the idea is to really dangle here and let gravity help you. So you can bend the knees as much as you like. You can fold over the thighs. But if you wanted to use the strap or your scarf, reach behind you, grab it with both hands, and then decide on some kind of distance between the hands that allows you to then also dangle, but with the arms up overhead. Now, in an active practice, you might kind of reach and move, and you're welcome to explore that as well. But in the yin practice, we try to relax as much of the muscular effort as possible. And let gravity take hold. Now, if you have your hands up overhead, there might be a moment where you're like, great, this works for about, half a minute or so. And then if you change your mind, you can release the strap and bring your arms into a different position. So feel free to change your mind. And we'll be here for a few more moments. But remember, I trust you more than I trust me to tell you when you're finished. Usually we hold the postures for about 2 minutes. And whenever you feel complete, maybe release the hands from the strap first, bring them closer to the earth. And head down towards the floor, helping yourself onto hands and knees. Maybe you pause here and get your bearings. You were just upside down for a little bit. And if child's pose is calling to you, by all means, head down to something restful on the ground. But sometimes being more upright after being upside down feels good. It's totally up to you. Enjoy a few moments of transition time where you're no longer in that pose we were in for a while. And you could be still, or you could be moving, say, from tabletop. After the holding of a passive yin posture, it can feel good to move. Something a little bit more yang. And if it ever, feels good to do something much more yang or energetic, like a downward dog shape or something more active, please listen to your instincts, trust yourself. Hmm. All right, so for the next posture, I invite you into a squat, and I want to give you a couple of different options. I forgot to mention this when you were setting your space up, but hopefully you have some room. I want to give you an option to do this upright, but I also want to give you an option if you want to do this at the wall. A squat at the wall. I'm not talking like gym style squat, like crazy squat. We want to keep it passive. So for those of you who would rather be more upright, you could stand on your feet, hold onto your thighs, or let your elbows rest on your thighs. If your body lets you squat down much more without your heels popping up, like I can't do this, excuse me, with my heels on the ground because I spent a lot of time in point shoes growing up. And so this wouldn't let me kind of rest in the shape because I'm still gripping and balancing here. So you could sit up on a little block or two if you have something nearby, and then rest your heels on the ground. Totally not cheating. You could also create this same shape in a very different, relaxing experience at the wall. Let me show you in case you're interested. So the hardest part is getting up to the wall, but you want to be a little bit away from the wall so that your back is on the ground and your knees bend, but your feet are on the wall. So it's not quite legs up the wall where they're straight. You're in that squatting position, but at the wall. And this is where some of you may just end up staying for a while. And that's okay. The idea behind doing it against the wall here is that the feet are up. And so that's another way to help the lymph system pump, right? You're upside down, but in a different orientation. So it's totally up to you. And if neither of those options feels right at the moment, make something up and try something else. So we might take some shuffling to figure out exactly how far away from the wall and all of that. Take your time. I'm going to sit upright mostly just so I can see you and keep track of time. And if you are in the wall variation, if you're in any variation, what is the feeling? Can you let go of muscular effort, even if it's like in the face? And can you rest into gravity a bit more? There's nothing fancy you need to do with your breath. And it could be interesting, soothing, or otherwise magical if you tune into your breath rhythm, even for a few seconds. Sometimes tuning into that breath rhythm of your own can actually help facilitate the flow of energy, so help unblock the meridians. Whereas if you're like bracing and holding the breath, that would be one of the ways that restricts the flow of energy. And we'll be here for a few more moments. Remember, you can get out at any time that you like and move into whatever transition moment you like. If you are at the wall and you're enjoying being at the wall, you can stay how you are, or you can straighten the legs and essentially come into a variation of legs up the wall. If you're in the more upright squat and you're ready for something different, you might help yourself out of the squat, enjoy a moment of transition, and then I'll share the next shape. So you can decide if you're at the wall and you're liking it and you want legs straight for the next pose, great. If you'd rather roll yourself around and come to sit and join us for caterpillar, also great. They're both essentially the same shape, just one's upside down. So for caterpillar, it's essentially a seated forward fold. And if you're not at the wall with your legs up, it can be nice to either sit up on a little something or even bring like a pillow or another blanket somewhere on your legs, and then let gravity kind of hold and pull on your torso. You don't need to reach for the feet. In fact, any bit of letting go of that reaching or efforting is helpful. And you don't have to fold all the way, right? Sometimes straight arms can sort of brace you. And even though the arms are straight, you can still use the bones of your body to hold you up. So there's sort of a 3-step process in creating a yin yoga posture or experience. The first is create the shape. The second is to relax into the shape. And the third is to simply be in the shape. Or if you want to swap the word be for breathe, you could do that instead. Perhaps enjoy a few more moments here. Excuse me. And in your own time, in your own way, slowly unfold from your caterpillar. If you're at the wall and you're ready to be done with the wall, roll off to one side and slowly make your way up to sit. And then enjoy some movement or just a different shape from the one you were in. If it's something more exciting, you could actively lift the bum off the ground, or with straight legs, try it. Anything that's calling to you. All right. When you're ready for something different, if you're ready, grab your blanket. And this is where one, maybe two would be helpful, or sometimes it's a pillow instead, and I'll explain why. So for this next one, I want to set you up into a variation of supported fish. So some of you are very familiar with my love of supported fish. I often include it in a lot of my classes. And I've been doing it a lot in my in-person classes as well, just for so many reasons. Today's version is going to be a little bit different for you to play with, but I'll show you two options in case one of them doesn't work. So if you have a blanket, it's maybe a medium-sized rectangle. It's helpful, the sturdier the blanket is, the better. If you roll a tight roll, so you create a cylinder. And by the way, if you have a yoga bolster at home, you're welcome to try that. If it's a really big round one, that this may or may not work. If it's a skinny small one, it might work instead of the blanket. So sometimes I have you put the blanket lengthwise, which is absolutely an option that you can do. Today, I'm inviting you to explore shifting the blanket perpendicular. And the intention is, again, to open up some space in the arm chest area by resting the upper back and chest over this blanket so that your arms are on the upper side. So if you're kind of down this way, it may or may not feel the same, and you can absolutely change your mind and decide. Now, when I come down here, because of how thick my blanket is, I feel like my head's kind of hanging in a way that's not comfortable for me. And so that's where the other blanket might come in handy as something of a layer just for my head. So I'm still getting the spaciousness across the chest. Now, if you get down here and you're like, yeah, this isn't working for me, or it's just too much, you have a couple choices. You could unroll your blanket so that it's a little squishier and smaller, or you could turn it lengthwise, like I showed you initially, and then your whole back could be on this blanket roll. It's a different experience, but they're both great. Your legs could be long, but if you prefer, feet flat on the floor is another nice choice. And then if it's helpful, perhaps bring the fingertips to the heart center, the chest area. And with very light touch, create a sort of a spreading movement towards the shoulders, and repeat that a couple of times, just like you're almost lovingly petting your heart. You're soothing your own heart and encouraging these muscles, this area of the body that feels so much, to relax and release. And then feel free to let the arms rest down. So you've created the shape. Now relax in it and be in it for a little bit. What does it feel like to breathe right now? Can you feel the undoing that's happening? Whenever you feel like it's time, move out of this slowly. Perhaps start by planting your feet flat on the floor. And then my recommendation is to roll carefully to one side. It's awkward for a moment. And then press into the floor and help yourself up to sit. And notice if there's any kind of tenderness from being in that position for a while. Your arms might want to move or kind of roll around, or maybe you want to hug yourself and go in the opposite direction from where we were. Feel free to scoot any of these blankets and things out of the way. And you might make your way onto hands and knees. You're welcome to pad the knees. And continue to enjoy a moment of transition where you're, sometimes it's just as simple as not being in whatever you were in before. All right. If you're ready for a new shape, we'll head into twisted child's pose. So for this, I like to take a wider knee child's pose or a wide knee stance. There's two ways you can do this: twisted child's pose, or you could do twisted thread the needle. I'll show you both. So for me, I like the wide legged, and part of that is opening up the space of the inner legs where the major yin meridians live in the body. So part of that could be that. But really what's more important is, are your ankles comfortable? Are your knees comfortable? Are your hips comfortable enough to relax in the shape? And so whatever distance apart you choose is going to inform that, right? So there's no wrong here. If you're comfortable bringing the hips back towards the heels, great. If not, stay more upright, and then it'll be more of the thread the needle shape. Feel free to start maybe with your right arm and thread it underneath you so that you can rest your shoulder and cheek down on the ground. Now, if that doesn't happen comfortably, hopefully you have your blankets or pillows nearby, and you can arrange them such that you have some padding either under the shoulder or under the head. If you're more upright and the knees are less bent, it'll look something like this. The idea, again, is to open up the space on the outside of the arm. Remember that large large intestine meridian where we poked around at the beginning. So here we're stimulating it through this shape. Can you relax any of the muscular effort you feel isn't necessary? Can you let gravity and your bones hold you up? Remember that even though we're holding a shape for a period of time, you don't have to feel stuck in it. So if at any point the sensation you're feeling goes kind of beyond a 5 out of 10, if it's a scale of 1 to 10, then change the shape, maybe back out, bring a blanket underneath somewhere, adjust the distance between your knees, perhaps. Or simply exit out of the shape entirely. Totally up to you. Remember, you can linger longer if you like. If you're ready to come out of this shape, do so tenderly. It's normal to feel stuck after you've held something passively like that for a little while. And it's possible that your body wants to move, especially in the arms, or a simple shake. If something more energizing is in order, you could absolutely do another downward dog. It's not required, but some of you may enjoy it. And then we'll switch to twist to the other side. So whichever arm you haven't done, for many of you, it'll be your left. You'll thread it through for twisted child's pose or twisted thread the needle. And honor whatever differences you notice as you twist to this side. Maybe you want the blanket this time. Maybe you don't. Maybe your knees want to be less bent or closer together. Feel free to fidget around until you find a spot that lets you relax into it for a minute or two. What does it feel like to breathe right now? If and when you're ready to move out, do so tenderly. Once again, enjoy a transition moment, whether it's with movement or stillness or something much more active or simply a different shape. For this next one, I'm trying to see how to configure you so that you have what you need without disturbing too much. All right. If you have a block or a pillow, have it somewhere near-ish your mat so that you can reach for it easily. And if not, it's not a big deal. And then come on down onto your belly. If being on your belly is not for you, you can roll onto your back. The next shape will be lazy lizard. So if you kind of make a pillow with your right arm, turn your right cheek to the ground, and then kick your left knee out to the side. Some of you sleep like this. What we're going to add here is a bit of the arm. So your left arm is also going to come up, and you can either rest it underneath your head to make a better pillow, or you can let the arm come out maybe at 90-ish degrees. The bend amount doesn't really matter to me. It's more just the spaciousness underneath the armpit to open up the arm and the underside of the arm. So whatever
place. It doesn't have to be a perfect 90 degrees. In fact, some of you may kind of pull the elbow up at an angle. And enjoy several moments here. Can you make friends with gravity? Can you feel the tenderness of your breath? Not just moving in and out through your nose, but really moving through your whole body. Feel free to stay as you are for a few more moments. If any of you would like to sort of turn the dial up on this, straighten your left arm out to the side and slide your left foot in. Turn your other cheek to the floor so you're facing away from your extended arm. And then help yourself roll onto your left side. So you're creating even more of a stretch, more spaciousness through the underside of the arm. Now, when you first kind of roll over, you may or may not love that position, in which case come back onto your belly and maybe come back to the original lazy lizard if you prefer, or change the angle that your left arm is reaching out at. Any little difference in that can change the whole experience. And it's a little funky, like what do you do with your right leg? What do you do with any little parts of you? Some of you have shoulders that allow you to rest your foot down on the ground. Mine does not. That's not really the point. In some like gym traditions, they call this scorpion pose. And remember, if you don't like it or you'd rather be in the more relaxing, lazy lizard version, then you're in charge and in choice. If you're in the scorpion and you feel done, come on back to your belly. Pause for a moment. Maybe your forehead is resting on your hands. And then when you're ready, try the lazy lizard on the other side. So now your left cheek will come down onto the mat. Your right arm can come out and your right leg can come out. And remember, it's up to you exactly where your arm is in space, right? The idea is create some spaciousness underneath, but there's no wrong position for it. And you don't need a big stretch to create that spaciousness. Once you find your new shape, relax into it all over again. Notice if you're holding any tension in the groin area or the inner thigh. Let your leg kind of find its natural position. It might slide around a little bit. Unclench your jaw and let your tongue rest on the roof of your mouth. Feel free to enjoy a few more moments here. If you want to try the scorpion variation on this side, slide your right foot down, turn your other cheek, your right cheek, reach your right arm straight out away from you, and then roll yourself onto your right side any amount. Remember that if you want to adjust your arm, come back to your belly first before you try to move it. And if on this side it's not for you, then skip it. You don't have to stay for long. Whenever you feel complete, make your way back onto your belly. Maybe your forehead comes onto the floor or your hands. Slide the legs back together again. And from here, with as little effort as possible, roll onto your back. Give yourself a good squeeze of the knees in towards your chest. You might steer them around in a circle to massage your low back if that feels nice. You could also separate the knees into different circular movements. And then the last posture I was going to invite you into is a supported bridge. And that's where either a little pillow or cushion or a block can be handy. So if you bend your knees and bring the feet flat to the floor, lift your bum enough that you can slide something underneath you. So it's a little bit of lift. It doesn't have to be much. In fact, I'm finding that the block, as nice as it sometimes is a little higher than I want it to be. So I might actually use this rolled up blanket from the fish pose earlier and rest my sacrum, the low back on that. You're welcome to have your arms anywhere where they can relax, on the ground or hands on the body, if that's comforting.
And continue to let the undoing happen to you. The release, the letting go, the surrender for the sake of something greater. For some of you, you may decide you want to switch this up for a few moments by straightening your legs so that the heels are out away from you. The height is still up under your bum. And now there's a little more spaciousness coming through, maybe the hip flexor area or the front body in general. If you want to bring your arms up overhead and rest them somewhere around your head on the floor, that might increase that sense of spaciousness throughout the front body. If for any reason that doesn't work for your back and you prefer the bridge with your feet flat and your arms down low, enjoy that version. And whenever you feel complete, bend your knees again so your feet are flat and lift your bum so you can slide that blanket, the pillow, or block out of the way. Bring your arms out wide across your mat, your feet a little wider, and let the knees swish from side to side, twisting to the left and to the right. Feel free to hang out on one side in the twist for a few moments. And perhaps switch to the other side and rest there for a few moments. And then find a posture or a position that allows you to rest. My recommendation, if you're up for it, would be legs up the wall. So if you're close enough to a wall that you don't have to make too much about it, you might scoot yourself around so that your legs are up and your back is on the ground. If you get there and you're like, nah, it's not really doing anything for me, you can carefully roll your way up and actually sit with your back against the wall, which can be really restful too. If you'd rather lie down on the ground, please. And surrender one more time to gravity, to tenderness. If you found a sense of peace in this posture, feel free to stay as long as you'd like. If you're ready to transition into another part of your evening or your day, gently draw your knees in towards your chest and roll to one side, curl up into a ball. If you're already seated, ignore what I just said. Eventually come on up to sit and reorient to your space, whatever you see out the window or in the room that you're in, the quality of light and whatever's changed inside of you as well. Thank yourself for showing up, and thank yourself for this slower, sweeter practice, which is such a great complement to all the activity and the fun and the excitement of other things too. If you're here live, I'll be on for a few more minutes. If you want to say hello or let me know if there was something that really, that you really enjoyed, and maybe something that was challenging or not helpful. That's good to know too. And if you're watching the recording, put it in the comments. I love being in the conversation with you in that way too. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening. And I thank you so much for being here.